Hello, everybody joining us this afternoon. This is the New Standard Podcast. I am your host, Neil Coulong. I am usually joined by Lance Williams, who is once again working on this legendary day. This is a dual emergency podcast day for the New Standard. We have never done, in fact, I think we've only done 2 emergency podcasts prior to this. So 2 in one day. That's how fired up I am. I was so fired up, I went out and brought in the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Doug Farrar of Touchdown Wire. Thank you for joining us, Doug.
That's a lead up. Probably can't live up to that, but we'll see what we can do.
That's how fired up I am.
You are fired up, I can tell.
2 gigantic pieces of Steelers news came within maybe an hour of each other. The first one, which I ranted about earlier, as no doubt some of you heard, the Steelers sent Chase Claypool to the Chicago Bears for their second round pick. So the guy who was trying to taunt me, telling me it was the Ravens pick before. No, I did my research. They got the Bears pick, probably a top 40, top 43-ish, somewhere in their pick. Top 40, it really doesn't matter where pick because they desperately needed it for a receiver that, frankly, they only need because they don't have another one. This is a 2-6 team. They need draft picks. They don't need Chase Claypool playing in the slot. Excellent move in my mind on that end. Also, though, and I'm going to lead this into Doug, the Steelers are in the, I believe it was confirmed, the Steelers have acquired cornerback William Jackson III from the Washington Commanders in basically a pick swap 3 years down the line at the point that the Washington front office isn't going to be employed anyway. So the Steelers are basically picking up the tab and the player with William Jackson. William Jackson, the player that I have heard, and I mentioned this on the last show as well, the Steelers were intent to draft at 25 overall in 2016. The Bengals, as it would turn out, wisely jumped ahead of them to draft Jackson, excellent corner out of the University of Houston, leaving the Steelers to draft. Do you remember, Doug?
I think I do, but go.
I'm waiting for the people to freak out and gnash their teeth, screaming at me for mentioning the name Artie Burns, but that's who it was.
They're not booing, they're saying Boo Earns.
Boo Earns. Boo Earns. His entire career, one long Boo Earns, while William Jackson racked up Pro Bowls.
Seahawk, Artie Burns.
Yeah, is he still there? Is he in Seattle? Is that where he is now?
I think he is.
The value of experience and length in a cornerback. It'll keep him at the veteran minimum for probably another season as long as he can chase down kicks. That's the 25th overall pick in the draft.
But hey, we got Richard Sherman Jr. up here in Tariq Woolen, so we don't need him anymore.
Hey, that's nice. And anytime you don't need Artie Burns anymore, you're going in the right direction as a franchise. Definitely a good thing. The Steelers got over Artie Burns fairly quickly after his non-illustrious career. Moved on. They picked up in the past Joe Hayden, Steven Nelson. These are 2 players who were paid in Pittsburgh about the same amount of money that William Jackson is going to be owed from the Steelers next season should they keep him. He is on the books for about $9.5 million in roster salary with a $2.5 million roster bonus, something that Washington was in no way going to pay. And we knew that, hence the reason they're trading away picks that really are like a generation behind where we are in the NFL right now. 0 to no value really for either team. And they're swapping 6th and 7th, almost like to show we did something else. We didn't just give you the guy. Okay. We got something out of the deal. Tremendous failure on behalf of Washington in even executing that deal. And Doug is going to tell us why. And oddly enough, Doug, you obviously know this. The people watching in don't, though. We have had multiple conversations about William Jackson somehow or other with how poorly he was being utilized and was utilized in Washington to the point where they weren't even playing him anymore. How awful of a decision was that on Washington's part, Doug?
Well, I go back to Steelers fans are obviously familiar with Jackson because he was locking Pittsburgh's receivers down when he was in Cincinnati, and he was really, really good. And Jackson is a dead red man corner, not off man, press man. There are cornerbacks who are artists and there are cornerbacks who are attackers. And like JC Jackson going to the Chargers before he got hurt and now is out for the season, unfortunately. In New England, JC Jackson was an attacker. Now, Brandon Staley wants him to be an artist. He wants him to be Darius Slay and sort of catch up on the route. Certain cornerbacks, William Jackson is one of them. He needs to be in your face the whole time. He will follow you step for step. He will kill whatever you're doing. If you play him off, you might as well flush the money right down the toilet because it's just not going to work. I did a piece about a month ago on why 4 formerly great cornerbacks are struggling. AJ Terrell from the Falcons, who had given up, I think, 7 touchdowns to no picks at that time, was in that list, as was JC Jackson, as was William Jackson. And, of course, because Jack Del Rio, the Commanders' defensive coordinator, is, well, I could get in trouble here if I said what I'm thinking.
Probably not. Nobody's listening anyway. Don't worry.
There you go. I have mentioned that his head is filled with delicious macaroni salad, and the tape matches with that. So
I don't even like macaroni salad, let alone Jack Del Rio.
Yeah. So the Steelers have played more man coverage, cover 0, cover 1, 2-man, than any team except for the New Orleans Saints, who always play a ton of man. This is, it seems to be, they were a heavy cover 2 team. This year, they've gone really heavy on man. They've played more cover 1, which is man to each side with a single high safety more than any other team. Now, ostensibly, when your post safety is Minka Fitzpatrick, that's supposed to work. As you know a lot better than I do, their cornerback situation through injury and attrition is just bad.
A lot of injuries, though. To be fair, it really is injury related, I think, more than anything.
It is a problem. So you go back to the first 2 A.J. Brown touchdowns. Yeah. Both of them were in cover 1. Both of them were A.J. Brown on the right side and Ahkello Witherspoon, who is a good corner. He's a good player. He's not terrible. He
wasn't Sunday. Well, he got benched.
But it's A.J. Brown. And it's you want A.J. Brown in man with no help. And there's Minka up top going, oh, crap. And Minka's trying to get over there late because the Eagles are doing all this cool stuff with their other receivers and route concepts and all that. So, as I wrote in the article, through the first 8 weeks of the 2022 season, only the Saints have played more man coverage than the Steelers. And in those man coverage situations, 116 opponent attempts, they've allowed 66 catches for a league high 1,046 yards, most of which came against A.J. Brown, 7 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and an opponent passer rating of 92.8. They have played more cover 1 than any team in the league by a pretty decent margin. Patriots are second, and that's where most of the problems have come. This is the coverage that Mike Tomlin wants his team to play. William Jackson is an ideal player for this. As long as they don't get into the whole thing of let's be creative with where we place William Jackson. No, you put him right in the receiver's face. You let him trail from step 1. He'll be fine. And it really is the variance between Jackson as a press corner and Jackson as an off corner is radical. It's one of the more remarkable flips in efficiency. And a lot of cornerbacks are like this. You know, they can do the one thing. Now, if you're Darius Slay and you can do it all, or if you're Richard Sherman back in the day and you can do it all, hey, great. You know, you can play press, you can play off, you can play bail. Okay, you're going to the Hall of Fame. William Jackson is, as I said, dead red press guy. If you put him in that situation, if you want to play that much man, ideal. He's not a communicator. He's an attacker. As long as the Steelers have it in their plan to have him do that. And it's not like, because when the I don't even know what they were called, Commanders football team, R word, whatever they were when they signed him, it's hard to keep track. The commies. They were they had played man coverage at one of the lowest rates in the league. And I gave the signing an A+ because I thought, silly me, that Jack Del Rio would adjust. You know, fool me once, whatever. I think it's a really good fit. And Mike Tomlin knows a thing or two about secondary. his coaches know a thing or two, but the offensive coaching is its own thing. But
we'll get into that another time. We're in a good mood today.
Yeah,
Let's stick with what we got.
I don't know if they can turn their season around, but this allows them to have at least one. I mean, when I wrote about him when Washington got him, he was a top 5 corner. Maybe he's a top 10. But the thing is, we don't know because he was so ill used in Washington that we don't really know how good he is. But if you look at the press deflection in the article I wrote on Touchdown Wire against CeeDee Lamb, I mean, you just shut CeeDee Lamb down and then looked horrible, took the wrong angle, and CeeDee Lamb was just wide ass open because he's not an off corner. So I'm going to give the Steelers the benefit of the doubt that they know what William Jackson is. They've watched the tape. They saw Ahkello Witherspoon get nuked for 2 touchdowns in cover 1, the first 2 in the first half. And when I saw your tweet, the first I saw of the trade, and I thought, you know what? They looked at those 2 plays and they went, we got to get someone because this is just bad.
That was the first thing that came to my mind. That's exactly why I wanted to reach out to you, because it was exactly that. Now, to your point, we don't know. We don't know what would have happened if William Jackson was on the field, but just based on what we have seen to this point, it's clear and obvious to me the Steelers only improved from this deal.
AJ Brown,
massive
AJ Brown, grown ass manning the cornerback in man would not have happened. Now, AJ Brown is a freak. Maybe he catches one of those 2 touchdowns in cover 1. He probably doesn't get both, because the thing on the first one, Jalen Hurts just vomited that ball up, and AJ Brown did what, I mean, that's the reason they traded a 1st-round pick for him, because he's that guy. DK Metcalf, his former college teammate, is that guy. There are certain people who, even when if they're double covered, they're still open. And AJ Brown is one of those guys. William Jackson can contend with those people at a much more consistent and efficient rate than a lot of corners, as long as you know exactly how to use him. There isn't a lot of, like you're not going to get creative with William Jackson if you're smart. You're going to say, he does the one thing, he does it at a top 5 level. Let's go.
Considering what they have now, and let's dip into this a little bit. We'll lay this out. I have seen reports that the Steelers will be paying approximately $3 million of the balance on William Jackson's contract for this season. Next season, he is owed $9.5 million in salary with a $2.5 million roster bonus due at some point quickly into the league year, which is March.
Mm-hmm.
In one way of thinking, you could say this is a tryout for Jackson. In the other, what I would say for the Steelers is this is a team that is seeing Cam Sutton, the most venerated cornerback on their roster, their tenured cornerback on their roster, hit free agency. No idea whether they would bring him back or not.
Mm-hmm.
Ahkello Witherspoon, the guy who got torched by AJ Brown, and Levi Wallace, the guy who got torched by everybody else before that, are entering the last.
That was not going to work.
your top 3 cornerback pairing is tenuous at best right now. Jackson, Wallace, and Witherspoon are signed for 1 more year each. Sutton is not. James Pierre is a free agent next season as well. So it would seem to me, considering
Pierre's been okay.
Pierre's the one who came in for Witherspoon.
Yeah.
You didn't see AJ Brown running wild all over the field after that. He made a play or 2. It was nice. It was good to see. As far as the Steelers secondary go, the future of it probably is some combination of 2 of the 3, Jackson, Witherspoon, and Wallace. I'm not 100% sure they're going to bring one back. I would have bet anything prior to this move and including this move, they were going to draft a cornerback with a premium pick in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
You have to figure Jackson he's going to be in this for the long haul. They wouldn't have acquired him without the idea in mind of having him for a couple of years. Clearly, the Steelers aren't competing this year.
No. Well, and I'll be fascinated to see. I'll be looking really hard at how they use him, because if they come out and just have him in press right away and they get it, because you also have to consider that Jackson had basically said, I want out. He said
weeks ago,
he
if
said
not during the offseason.
3 different guys at the NFL Network. I think it was Garofalo, it was Pelissero, and it was Rappaport. All said, in their report, Jackson said, "I'm a man corner. They're not using me the way I'm supposed to be used." I mean, when a player says that in the media, that's embarrassing. It's just, ugh. If
there's a level of pride that you have to swallow to admit that if you're a quarterback, because you're destroying your market value at that point.
Jackson, but Jackson knows who and what he is. And there is a lot of value to, if you look at like what the Cowboys did this year, they went to a lot more man coverage. It is a 3-step drop league more than it's more quick games. So to get off in a quick tangent, how do you disrupt pick plays, quick slants, double slants inside, double slants in the red zone? How do you do that? You can't get to the quarterback, time. What do? You disrupt the receiver. How do you do that? You press him.
Got to get in there.
So I will be interested to see right away how they use him, how they deploy him, how much he's pressed. If he's pressed 100% of the time, that's not just good for the Steelers. It's good for William Jackson. All of a sudden, you have synergy, and then you're good. And then they can look at other, other possibilities. The guy up at Penn State plays pretty good man coverage too. Joey something or other. Porter?
Little Peasy.
Yeah. Not that
he's probably a top 10 guy, right?
We'll
share this another time. I don't know if that's such a tough position to draft. He's so really hard.
He's really good.
Yeah. I like everything about his game for sure.
Yep.
Let me ask you this. I'm going to steer this into what are we going to do now? The Steelers, Mike Tomlin in particular, not a team or a person who's going to quit. He's not going to give up. They're not going to say, I'd much rather have draft picks. Okay. The players, believe it or not, really don't like draft picks. I wonder if
players hate draft picks because they think they're going to draft someone to replace me.
Right. And they get 7 of them at least most years anyway. So the Claypool move probably didn't win the approval of the locker room. But the Jackson move, you have to think to some degree, they have to like what he's going to bring, depth, if nothing else. Do you think, considering the experience, his defensive coordinator in Cincinnati was one Terrell Austin, the experience that Jackson has specifically in an interpersonal relationship with the defensive coordinator, the history of the team that wanted to draft him, I'd imagine they chatted him up a bit before coming to that conclusion.
Oh, sure.
The style of defense that they're playing, which is very well suited for him, and the fact that the Steelers secondary is routinely a gong show. Do you think coming off of a bye, when the Steelers take on the Saints in week 9, do you see Jackson getting a full complement of snaps? Is he going to be a starter?
So they play the Saints. Okay, they have a bye, and then they by the 13th.
They're on bye now. Yep.
By the 13th. Oh hell yeah, yeah. He'll be on the field like full go, and then they play the Bengals next, which will be fun.
Yes. I you know what? I didn't look that. I thought that, but I hadn't looked at it. Yeah. That will be fun.
Revenge game. Woohoo!
Like finally gets to be on the field when his team plays the Bengals.
Yeah.
Bengals look pretty good not signing him now.
I think given that extra week, I mean, look at what the Niners did with McCaffrey. They gave him a week, and all of a sudden he's Sammy Baugh.
He's not just getting touches for him. He's throwing touchdown passes.
They finally have their franchise quarterback. And then, I mean, the Eagles got Robert
McCaffrey over Garoppolo.
The Eagles got Robert Quinn on the field as quickly as they possibly could. Now, the 49ers and Eagles are contending teams. The Steelers are sort of figuring it out for 2020. I'm sorry, New Standard listeners, watchers. We're not looking at this as a playoff team for multiple reasons, most of which are offensive. So they need to take stock. Mike Tomlin at least wants to finish the season strong. This is not a guy who's in danger of losing his job or anything, but my God, it's got to get better than this. So this is part of the reason they did this. They're building for the future. They want to shore up that defense because they know the offense is an absolute clown show. So something's got to work. And given, as I said, the type of coverage they want to play, type of defense they have, where's Watt? Is he like, could he be back by the 13th?
On the list of things to talk about, TJ Watt, as we all recall, was mentioned by some, usually kind of the junk media types, that said TJ Watt was looking to return against Philadelphia. I think that was all hype. The plan all along has been for him to return following the bye week after the Eagles game, with the week off against the Saints in week 9. And it really only makes sense. You wouldn't play him and then give him a bye and then have him play again. It makes a lot more sense for them to do what they're doing. Expect Watt to be back the next time the Steelers play. And it's probably 7 weeks too late for them to really salvage anything, but having Watt on the field gives you a chance to win, and you got to be excited about that.
I don't need to look at on and off splits to, tell me what that, tell me the difference.
The funny thing is, you look at the Steelers' defensive results. You know when he's on the field and when he's not. He's that kind of player.
When he's back, you have Hayward, you have Ogunjobi, who I told you this guy was going to be an asset. He's just really good. You have Minka as the post safety. Now you have Jackson as that press corner. You can start to tie pressure to coverage. You can start to make things happen. The linebackers, I don't know. Well, I do know, unfortunately.
That day.
Nah, we're not going to do that today. So you can start to tie pressure to coverage at least 2 levels of the field. You have your top 2 edge rusher. You have a great press corner. You have a great post safety. You can start to install the things you want to install at a level that's credible, because I don't care how great you are and how great your schemes are. If you just don't have the guys to do it, then, it's going to look like what it looked like.
And we've seen Brown,
that. AJ Brown basically owning your team.
And I would even put the potential of this, and this is going to come back to bite me in the ass later on, I'm sure, but I am going to say it. The potential of this is similar, not the same, lower, but the impact is similar to what happened to the Steelers defense when Minkah Fitzpatrick joined it in the middle of the season. And the reason I say that is because it's not just the talent of the player, it's who the player takes off the field in doing that. Mm-hmm. And that the Steelers will be able to do more of the things that they have built themselves to do. It's going to strengthen the secondary, which they really need. At the same time that Watt is going to come back, I think you're going to see more of the impact defense that we expected from the Steelers this year.
One of my favorite stories to tell is, I think it was in 2016, I asked Pete Carroll, we were talking about how good Earl Thomas is and why. And Pete said, when was the last time you saw anyone throw a post on us? Like, before Earl. Minkah erased so many passing concepts for opponents. I think William Jackson can do the same thing if you use him correctly. And then you have Jackson riding those receivers up. Well, now Minkah doesn't have to oh crap, as he did on those touchdowns. Because Minkah, and because I did a whole piece on the Eagles, and oh my God, now they have a deep passing game. The NFL better watch out. They're also running stunts now. Oh God.
They're going to continue to improve, which is what I said in your season preview when I picked the Eagles to win the Super Bowl.
Yep, there you go.
They will continue to improve.
I picked the Bills to face the Packers. 50% wrong.
Speaking of the Packers, though, and I want to get to this because we got 2 parts here, and I want to get your thoughts on the other move of the day for the Steelers. Reports have come out that the Green Bay Packers also offered a 2nd-round draft pick for now former Steelers receiver Chase Claypool. The reason I feel like this is worth mentioning at all is just because, and I'm guilty of this, I ranted and raved about how dumb the Bears must be to have wanted to make the deal that they did. A lot of times with trades, what will end up happening is you have a market that gets generated by what else is out there. This is not an open, free market, okay? It's not free agency. He's not able to field offers on his own. And on top of that, the increments of assets in a trade are pretty stark. There's a significant difference between a second round pick and a third round pick, but there's nothing in between those two things. So it's one or the other. I'm going to guess, if we are to believe the Andrew Filipponi report, if we are to believe that the Packers had offered a second round pick, the bet for the Steelers is the Bears are going to do worse than the Packers are, and that second round pick is going to be worth more. So we're not going to trade him to Green Bay. Doug, we've discussed the hilarity of the mild-mannered, intelligence-wise Chase Claypool going up against Aaron Rodgers in the middle of a game. As much as I would enjoy that, it almost seems to me, out of fairness to Claypool, the Steelers wouldn't want to put him in that situation. We'll leave that there. Let's get into this though. As far as
the only thing that would be good about Chase Claypool in Matt LaFleur's offense is we get to see even more exasperated Aaron Rodgers' face.
Oh, it just doesn't.
There is
for somebody who doesn't like Aaron Rodgers, that's heaven to me.
That passing game is so structured. Now, on the other hand, you saw against they can't even run a freaking 2-minute offense right now. They're hosed. And it's not just losing. Cobb was hurt. Lazard was hurt. So the two guys left that he trusts were out. So he's got a bunch of UPS delivery drivers and Romeo Dubs. And what is he supposed to do? So maybe
NDSU legend Christian Watson. Come on.
Yeah, maybe. He got hurt too.
Rodgers loves him.
Yeah, right. Let's get another big, fast guy who can hold on to the ball. Put him next to Christian Watson.
Yeah, exactly. Because Watson's not working out. Let's go get Chase Claypool. No difference between those two at all.
You, the Ron Burgundy voice, I don't believe you. The Bears are looking for anything. They're Darnell Mooney and the Pips. They're just trying to get something going. And that passing game, it's funny because Luke Getsy comes from the Packers, their OC. It is not as structured because Fields doesn't see it the way Rodgers sees, and that's not a slight on Fields. Aaron Rodgers is one of the top 3 quarterbacks of all time. He's the best thrower of the football I've ever seen in my life. We can make a lot of fun of him, and justifiably so, but you can't argue that.
We will continue to make fun of him. Don't worry.
Yes, we will. We will also concede that he is the greatest thrower of the football I've ever seen. I don't believe. That to me smacks of the Rams being interested in Christian McCaffrey to drive up the price for the 49ers. That kind of deal. So take it for what it is. Claypool, and I'm seeing some people already saying that. I saw one person say that basically Claypool is DK Metcalf, but DK Metcalf has better marketing. No.
Well, stop it. DK Metcalf does have better marketing because he has something to market.
Well,
that's kind of
DK Metcalf is also big and also fast and also ridiculously physically gifted.
And he's good too.
And DK Metcalf has also improved exponentially as a route runner, as a processor of offense, as a go-to guy, especially in Seattle's offense this year when it went from Russell Wilson to Geno Smith, and all of a sudden Shane Waldron could unleash the whole playbook. DK Metcalf is in on all of that. DK Metcalf is what we want all these tools guys to be. Chase Claypool can bend the matrix like 1 out of 10 plays, but he will have you pulling your hair out in at least 3 of the other 9, and you know this. I don't really see that changing.
I do want to give Claypool a reasonable farewell here. I'm sure we'll continue to talk about him, but I will not be nearly as exasperated discussing him after games as I have been for the last 2 years. He tweeted this a little bit ago from Chase Claypool on Twitter. I will always have an unbelievable amount of love for Steelers Nation and the organization that drafted me out of Notre Dame. I'm beyond grateful for the amazing people in Pittsburgh for embracing me and the lifelong memories made. Now, back to business in the Midwest. He's got the bear down thing going already. All right, well, good for him. I wish him the best. That's all I really need to care about him anymore. But more than anything, what we got also in the time of this tweet from the Pittsburgh Steelers We have acquired the Chicago Bears' original 2023 second round pick. So the guy, Mr. Research, if you're out there watching, the original 2023 second round pick for wide receiver Chase Claypool, and acquired cornerback William Jackson III and a conditional 2025 seventh round pick from the Washington Commanders for a conditional 2025 sixth round pick. I think that's hilarious that they managed to pull this deal off multiple years into the future and did not yet trade away their fifth round pick. They will soon enough, but not for a good player like William Jackson. It'll be some crazy thing that nobody saw coming. Just watch. But that's the news. Just to recap everybody again, you are listening to the the New Standard Podcast. I'm your host, Neil Coulong. Lance Williams is unable to make it with us now. I know he is watching, giving me notes, and discussing all of this in spirit in his own head. And we appreciate his presence for that. I am joined, though, by the man, the myth, the legend, Touchdown Wire's Doug Farrar. We are discussing the two biggest news pieces of really the Steelers season to this point. It does not save the season. Losing a starting wide receiver doesn't save a season. We don't even know who the Steelers slot receiver is going to be. Is it going to be Gunnar Olszewski full-time? Please, God, no. That's not a good thing. Is it going to be Miles Boykin, the guy who couldn't play outside either? So his Chase Claypool's Notre Dame teammate moving inside kind of fits with a certain brand of failure, but maybe an option. What about Steven Sims? Kick returner. He's gotten on the field a little bit more. He was still hurt when he got on the field. Is he an option? Is he somebody to look into? Lance and I are going to dive into that tomorrow. We are going to go with a full show with Lance this time. I'll move back to my normal side on the right of your screen. This is really throwing me off. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm having to move around and stuff. We are going to dive into the trade situations that the Steelers just made, what that means to the team moving forward, how you can work in William Jackson, what they're planning on doing with William Jackson, and all the other news that's going to come up between now and then. Opinions, comments, concerns, everything like that. It's been a record day here for the New Standard Podcast. I want to thank you all for listening in. It's been a great show. We're really excited. This gives us a lot of fodder leading into what's probably going to be kind of a disappointing year the rest of the way. But their offseason just got a lot more interesting.
Can I throw one more thing in?
Yes, please.
Throw the ball to George Pickens more. You have no excuse, Matt Canada. Do it.
Okay, yes. Did you notice that too, by the way? Almost a record. Doug just broke the record. We almost went the entire show without even mentioning Matt Canada, who, incidentally, the news on that is he was not fired today, as far as we all know. I was personally looking for the greatest day in Steelers non-game history with the acquisition of William Jackson, the removal of Chase Claypool for 200% of his value, and then the termination of Matt Canada.
3 targets against the Eagles. 3.
Now, Lance and I are going to get into this. We touched on a little bit before. It kind of makes me wonder if Pickens might not have been kind of the target of fellow rookie Kenny Pickett's ire as far as the guys who didn't study leading into the game. It kind of makes me wonder a little bit. They threw the ball a lot. Pickens didn't get anything at all. I wonder if he wasn't exactly where Pickett thought that he was going to be, and something with that went south. I don't know, but we are going to break that down.
No. I don't care if George Pickens is not studying the playbook.
Well,
throw him the ball.
I want to hear if it is him, though, because I personally think it's advantageous to a player right now to not know the playbook on this team, because they're averaging 15 points a game, which is the worst in the NFL. I don't think we've ever seen the Steelers be the worst offense in the NFL, but here we are. No getting out of this anytime soon.
I mean, the RPO and the can stuff last year was better than this.
Yeah, that's okay. If that doesn't say it all, I don't know what does. The Steelers 2022 are looking way up at the Steelers 2021 offense. That's how bad this team is right now. Losing Chase Claypool will not make that better, but you take a high second-round draft pick for Chase Claypool.
Throwing the ball to George Pickens, well, I'm just saying.
Chase Claypool shouldn't be playing inside anyway. It's because of George Pickens that he is inside. It's not a strategic move. It's that Pickens is a lot better. get him the damn ball and let's make hay. I mean, come on,
Mhm.
let's go. Thanks for coming, Doug. I appreciate you joining. Thanks everybody for listening. We're going to cut Emergency Podcast Part 2 off. We do not expect more news from the Steelers, but I assure you, if Matt Canada is relieved of duty, and we are aware of that, we're going to be on here. So let's, until that day, ladies and gentlemen, like, tell a friend, and subscribe. Thanks for listening.